Ever feel like there's this whole bunch of shoulds hanging over your head, like all these supposed tos?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, today we are diving into Max Stirner.
Yeah.
And he had some really, really strong opinions about that feeling we're talking about.
Yeah, he really did.
We're going to be exploring selections from his work, The Ego in Its Own,
Great book.
to kind of uncover his arguments,
Yeah.
against both religious structures.
Right.
And all those secular substitutes that he found, honestly, just as limiting.
Yeah.
Get ready to rattle some cages, folks.
I think what's so fascinating about Stirner is how he goes after pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't just critique, organized religion like
Yeah.
we see with a lot of philosophers.
Mm.
He turns around and says those secular replacements are just as problematic.
Right. So the things that we put our faith in place of religion,
Exactly.
are no better, potentially even worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's unpack this whole old and new way of thinking that Stirner talks about.
Yeah.
He seems to see this historical pattern kind of repeating over and over.
Right, exactly. He argues that the old way of thinking really clung to the world as like the truth.
Okay.
Think, ancient civilizations, myths, deities, all of that.
Right.
And then along comes the new, where it's all about spirit or, these abstract ideals being the ultimate truth.
Okay, so instead of Zeus throwing lightning bolts, we have, reason guiding us to a brighter future.
Yes.
Same thing, different packaging.
Precisely. Stirner would say both are still fixations on some kind of external truth beyond, the individual.
Instead of looking inward,
Yes.
we're looking outward to these big concepts.
Exactly. And he uses the example of the shift from blind faith in Christianity to, the humanism of the pre-Reformation era.
Okay.
And he's saying even though it seems like progress,
Right.
people were still seeking answers outside themselves.
So, for example, instead of looking to God for the answers, now people are looking to man or to reason,
Yeah.
still not looking inward.
And that's where his whole spook thing comes in, right?
Yes.
These huge abstract ideals that are like ghosts.
Haunting us.
It's such a powerful image. He's arguing these abstract ideals. Man, reason, the state, they become these spooks that haunt us, demanding conformity.
Okay, I love this. So give me an example. How does this work in real life?
Well, he compares, for example, a state demanding loyalty to, a beehive.
Okay, so everyone's just a worker bee serving the queen.
Exactly. No individuality, just blindly following the rules of the hive.
Wow.
And he doesn't just stop there. Stirner even goes after things that, we typically view positively. Love, family, patriotism, you name it. He says even these seemingly positive concepts, when they become these unquestioned ideals, they become tools that can suppress individual will.
So even love can be a spook.
In a way, yes.
That's a tough pill to swallow.
It's not that he's saying love is inherently bad or anything like that. What he's arguing is that when we turn anything, even love, into this unchallenged ideal, it can be used to control us and to limit us.
Interesting.
We stop asking if it's right for us as individuals, and we start just following some kind of script.
And I'm guessing this is where his whole concept of egoism comes in, right?
Exactly.
Which, let's be honest, has gotten a pretty bad rap over the years.
And Stirner knew that. He was very aware of that. He wasn't saying, go be a selfish jerk or anything like that. He actually wanted to kind of reclaim the word egoism from all its negative baggage. What he's advocating for is honesty about our motivations.
So even someone donating to charity, and they feel really good about it.
Right.
They're helping others. That's still egoism in Stirner's view.
Because it's about the feeling IT gives them, right?
Interesting.
It's about recognizing that everything, even acts that seem selfless, are motivated by self-interest on some level.
Okay.
He's not advocating for cruelty. He's advocating for honesty.
Be real with yourself about the why behind your actions, instead of pretending that we're above self-interest.
Yes.
Okay, so that's Stirner on these abstract ideals, these spooks. Let's talk about something a little bit more concrete. Property. Because Stirner had some very strong opinions about ownership.
He did, yeah. And this is where things get really, really interesting, I think. Because Stirner argued that true ownership isn't about legal documents or what the state says you own. It's about taking what you need and what you can control.
Interesting.
And he uses this example of, a smuggler who disregards trade laws.
So it's not about what some piece of paper says.
Yeah.
It's about possession.
Yes. It's about power, not some rule.
Almost like an outlaw philosophy of ownership.
In a way, yes. He's challenging the entire foundation of how we view property, how we view ownership. It's not about following rules. It's about questioning them. It's about understanding power dynamics and then acting in your own self-interest.
This is a very different way of looking at things. But Stirner didn't just want to tear down like existing systems. He also had ideas about how people could, connect and cooperate.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about these associations he envisioned.
Right. So Stirner believed in these associations that were formed based on mutual benefit, not enforced by some higher authority.
Okay.
So imagine, instead of a landlord and a tenant bound by this contract, it's two people choosing to, work together.
Okay.
Because it benefits both of them.
So it's less about a rigid agreement, and it's more about just a flexible understanding.
Yes.
That can kind of ebb and flow as people's needs change.
Exactly, yeah.
And that brings us to another interesting point about Stirner, his emphasis on the present moment.
Right.
Like really being present.
He was so critical of people chasing some, true life in the future, right? Whether that's a religious afterlife or some kind of utopian society.
Interesting.
Even those considered, enlightened thinkers, he felt they were sacrificing present joy for some future promise.
So instead of chasing this idealized future, he's saying just embrace the messy, imperfect reality of right now.
Exactly.
Warts and all.
Stirner sees the present moment as the only place where we can truly, own ourselves free from all those spooks of the past, of the future. Yeah. It's about being fully present in our lives with all their imperfections and recognizing that this, right here, right now, is where true self-ownership exists.
This is making me think about how often we, delay our happiness,
Yeah.
Thinking, oh, I'll be happy when?
Right.
As if happiness is some destination.
Exactly.
But Stirner is saying, nope, happiness is right here, right now, if you choose to claim it.
And that's a really powerful message, right? It's a call to action. Stop waiting for some, perfect future and start living authentically in the present moment.
Okay, I gotta say, I'm starting to feel a little fired up about this whole, owning yourself thing.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, it also sounds a bit, I don't know.
A bit what?
Chaotic.
Okay.
If we're all just running around following our own desires, how does anything get done?
That's a really common reaction to Stirner.
Really?
Oh, yeah. People think he wants this world with, no rules, no cooperation.
Which does sound a bit wild, I have to say.
It does. It does.
If it's not about laws or religious commandments, what's stopping anyone from just, doing whatever they want, even if it hurts other people?
So Stirner acknowledges that even in this world of, egoists, as he calls them, people still going to interact, right? And remember those associations we were talking about?
Yeah.
They're really key here. Stirner believed that individuals would form alliances, they would cooperate when it was in their best interest.
So it's like a different kind of social contract almost.
Exactly, yeah.
We cooperate not because some authority tells us to, but because we actually see the benefits for ourselves.
Exactly. He argued that this type of cooperation based on, self-awareness and mutual benefit would actually be more stable.
Oh, interesting.
Than one that's built on just, force obedience.
Okay.
He compares it to, a trade agreement, right?
Right.
One that's voluntary is way more likely to last because both sides actually see it as beneficial.
Yeah, that makes sense. But what about, the people who do want to hurt others?
Right.
Are there just, no consequences in Stirner's world for that kind of behavior?
Well, so he doesn't shy away from the fact that there will always be conflict.
Right.
Right. That's kind of a given. But he'd argue that actions have consequences regardless of, formal laws or not.
Okay.
If someone's constantly stealing or hurting others, well, they're going to make a lot of enemies, right?
So then it's other people also acting in their own self-interest who then band together to protect themselves.
Precisely. And that becomes a natural form of justice, arising from individual interactions rather than some top-down system.
So instead of laws, we have consequences.
Basically.
And hopefully, most people realize that it's not in their best interest to be constantly causing harm.
Right.
But this still feels very abstract to me.
Okay, yeah.
That we're talking about really challenging, big ideas here. Government, religion, even love, like we were talking about earlier. How do we actually start to live this way? To actually be more aware of these spooks, as Stirner calls them, in our everyday life?
Well, he would say it starts with recognizing them.
Okay.
Stirner really wants us to question those unspoken assumptions and expectations that shape so much of how we behave.
So how advertising tells us what we should want,
Yes.
or how social media kind of pushes us to fit in all the time.
Exactly. He'd argue those are spooks that are influencing our behavior.
Yeah.
And even, he would say, the way that we talk to ourselves can be shaped by these external forces.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just our actions, it's like our thoughts too.
Yeah, and he even goes so far as to say that language itself is infected with this spookiness.
Wait, hold on. How can language be spooky?
Well, think about how often, we say things like, I should, or I have to.
No.
Those phrases, he would say, can reveal a lot about how we view our own agency.
So it's not that going to the gym is like inherently bad. It's about really questioning like why I feel obligated to go.
Exactly.
Even if I'd rather be, doing something else.
Exactly. Who says you should go to the gym? Is that really what you want? Or is that society's idea of, health and beauty kind of like dictating your actions?
This is such a mind bender.
Yeah.
So how do I like escape this linguistic spookiness? It's not like I can just, stop talking.
No, you don't have to go silent or anything, but you can become more mindful.
Okay.
Like catch yourself when you use those shoulds and those have-tos.
Okay.
And then just ask yourself, is this truly my desire, or am I letting some kind of external force call the shots here?
So it's about awareness and then I guess like choosing language that's more aligned with my values.
Exactly.
This is way deeper than I expected. We've gone from like questioning institutions to questioning our own thoughts.
Right. And that's the thing about Stirner. He kind of makes you question everything.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to just hand you this new set of rules. He wants to give you the tools to dismantle the old ones.
I love that.
And then you build something new, something that is uniquely your own.
Okay, so to kind of like wrap things up here, let's talk about how we can actually apply some of Stirner's, ideas to our lives.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot
We have.
from those big abstract spooks
Right.
to even those more like subtle ways
Yeah.
that they can like creep into our language.
And I think that's really where Stirner's challenge lies, taking these like radical ideas and
Yeah.
actually putting them into practice.
Right.
Because he's not giving us a step-by-step guide or anything.
No.
He's kind of giving us a new lens through which to see the world.
So how do we even begin to live more like a Stirnerian egoist? Like it feels kind of overwhelming
Yeah.
when you think about questioning everything.
It can be daunting, for sure.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be about, making these drastic changes overnight or anything like that.
Okay.
Stirner himself emphasized this idea of self-discovery as a process, not a destination.
Okay.
A good place to start, honestly, is just by paying attention.
Paying attention to what specifically? Give me something to like grab onto here.
Those moments where you feel that sense of should or have to, like
Yeah.
when you're about to, say yes to something that you really don't want to do,
Oh, I felt that.
or buy something you don't need.
Or that feeling of like inner resistance. That's a sign that maybe a spook is calling the shots.
Exactly. That discomfort, that's your ego. And I'm talking in the Stirnerian sense here, trying to assert itself.
Okay.
He would say, listen to that feeling. Ask yourself, who benefits if I ignore this and just go along with it?
So it's about becoming aware of those moments when I'm acting out of obligation or out of external pressure.
Yeah.
Rather than genuine desire.
Exactly. And once you start to notice those moments, you can start to make different choices. Choices that are more aligned with what you truly value,
This is making me realize how often I say yes to things just out of habit.
Yeah.
Or because I don't want to disappoint people.
Right.
But what you're saying is, like, Stirner would say it's okay to disappoint people.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially if it means honoring my own needs and desires.
He would argue that those who truly care about you
Yeah.
will respect your choices, even if they don't always agree with them,
That's a very liberating thought, I gotta say.
It is, yeah.
Like, I'm giving myself permission to put my own well-being first.
And that's such a key part of his philosophy, It's not about being selfish or just disregarding the needs of others, but it's recognizing that you are also worthy of care and consideration.
So it's not about becoming this, like, isolated person
Right.
who, rejects all relationships, rejects responsibilities.
Yeah, it's not about becoming a hermit in the woods.
Right, exactly.
Although you could if you want.
Right, if that's what you want.
Ye-
But it's more about, like, engaging with the world from a place of self-awareness.
Yes, absolutely. It's about choosing your relationships, your commitments, your values.
Consciously.
Yes, consciously and deliberately, rather than letting them just kind of happen to you.
I like that.
Yeah.
And even though Stirner didn't give us, like, a specific path,
Right.
this does give us some practical, like, tools
Absolutely.
to start applying these ideas.
For sure.
We can start by, paying attention to our language.
Yes.
Noticing those shoulds and those have-tos.
That's a good start.
We can be more aware of those moments when we feel that inner resistance.
Yes.
And we can start asking ourselves that question. Who benefits if I ignore this feeling?
I think those are great takeaways.
This has been, honestly, such an incredible deep dive.
It really has.
Stirner's work is challenging. It really is.
Oh, yeah.
But also just incredibly, thought-provoking.
Absolutely.
He really pushes us to, examine our assumptions,
Yes.
question our beliefs, and ultimately, take ownership of our lives in a way that, honestly, very few other philosophers really do.
I could not agree more.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
doesn't offer any easy answers,
Yep.
but he gives us the tools to kind of forge our own path.
To create a life that is truly authentically our own.
And that, my friends, is a journey worth taking.
I think so, too.
So as you go about your day-to-day, keep Stirner's ideas in mind.
Yeah. Love that.
Pay attention to those spooks out there trying to influence you.
Mm-hmm.
And above all, remember, you have the power to choose your own path.
You do.
Until next time, happy diving.